Hello and welcome to Around the Hoop, the Westwood Basketball Show. I'm your host, Mike Gay, and today we'll be joined by Coach Catherine Clifford, as well as the Player of the Week. We'll introduce you to her in a second. And then we'll be joined by Coach Steve St. Martin and the Boys Player of the Week. So welcome, Coach Clifford and Hannah Bean, Player of the Week.
Thank you for having us.
So we've had a little bit of a Christmas break, followed by the New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Walk us through what the girls program has been through over the last couple of weeks.
So we've had two games. The first one was we were at Medfield, which is a great rival of ours, always a good matchup. So we won that game. We'll tell you a little bit more about that. Then we hosted Wayland in a non-league game over the break in between Christmas and New Year's. We won that one too. Two very different games. Against Medfield, we came out really fast, shot the ball really well most of the night. Against Wayland, we came out really flat and shot the ball poorly most of the night. But we're able to win both, which was great. So it's just kind of a diversity of wins for our resume moving forward. But the Medfield game was great. They're really strong. If anyone that knows girls basketball around here knows if you can't handle their pressure defense, you don't have a shot. So that was kind of our key going in. I think we did a really good job with that. And we're able to pull out that win, which is a great start on the TVL large side, which is really competitive this year. And Wayland is a good team. They play in the Dual County League, which is a lot of Division I teams out in Central Mass. They came out, they played really well to their credit. Defensively, they were really good. We didn't shoot well, but we were able to make runs when we needed to get that win. So that was good for us too.
That's great. And Wayland, I believe last year it was a very close game when you traveled to Wayland.
Yep.
So it's great to have kind of a renewed rivalry. That's great. So congratulations to Hannah Bean. You're not only the Player of the Week, but you're back with Westwood. So again, welcome back. You went to Nobles your first 3 years and transferred back to Westwood. So
Yes.
why don't we start by talking about what it's like to be back at Westwood?
Yes, so I miss Nobles very much, but I'm actually very happy to be back at Westwood. I, as you know, played Metro West with all these girls growing up, playing basketball with them. So I'm very happy for my last year at Westwood to be with them and finish off my last year of basketball with them as well. So it's very exciting and very good to be with those girls again.
Now that's very good to hear. I believe it was the Wayland game. I was there, and I was pleasantly surprised to see some of your Nobles teammates come and support you. It wasn't that game, it was one of the other games.
Yeah, that was very nice of them. I wasn't expecting that too. It was a very nice surprise.
Yeah, that's great. So talk about the transition from Nobles and the program that you were involved in there to coming into a somewhat new program, but some familiarity with the girls that you played with growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about that transition and what it's been like.
Not too much of a transition, I would say. Definitely different coaching styles, different types of players, but as you know, there's different leagues, different types of rivals, but then again, it is basketball. It is all the same thing, so I'm just happy to play and happy to play with new players as well. Not new because I played them in middle school, but we're all definitely more skilled now, so it's a different type of play, but also very fun at the same time, so I'd say it's very similar.
Awesome. So maybe a little bit more than a quarter of the season under your belt-ish. Any surprises to either the style of play, some of the skills that the girls that you played with again have developed, or is it what you expected?
I would say I haven't seen any surprises yet. I'd say it is what I've expected, but going into each game, I haven't played these teams before, so there's nothing I can really expect or nothing really I can be afraid of, only from word of mouth and what I've heard from people. But yeah, going into each game, it's kind of like, we'll figure it out, we'll see how it goes for me, and then I get a sense of how these teams are like, and for most of them in the big part of the TVL, we will be playing them again, so I'll be more prepared going into it. But just each game, I'm excited to see how it goes and figure it out as during the game goes.
That's great. As a senior, you're immediately looked upon for leadership along with the other captains. What are you trying to do in that vein? Are you kind of meeting with some of the other seniors and talking about how the tone at practice might be, or Coach Clifford's goal of improving every day? So how are you taking leadership, again, fairly new to the program?
Yeah, so I definitely, because I did already know these girls, it wasn't that hard, I would say, coming into it. The captains are great, but before, I'd say, like each game or during practice or honestly any time during the basketball season, I feel like I'm not being, I have to like not say anything. I feel like I am able to speak and able to talk up and lead the girls as well, and the captains love it too. We all chime in whenever we want, and it really works out. So even though I'm not a captain, I feel as though I do have a great leadership role on the team.
Coach Clifford, why don't you walk us through the Player of the Week selection?
Yeah, so Hannah's here, obviously. We introduced her already. She's been fantastic for us. We're really happy to have her back. The 2 games in specific that we're looking at are against Medfield. So Medfield is one of the conversations that we had early in the season was she's probably the best playmaker I've coached. If you come see us play, her vision is fantastic. And I think we talked about like being more of a shot first point guard, looking for her own offense. In Medfield, she responded to that by just scoring 19 points and carrying us through some big moments. So she was really great there. And then Medfield, we always talk about, has great pressure defense and is definitely a catalyst for us for breaking that press. The Wayland game was sort of the opposite. We really couldn't get anything going, but down the stretch we needed to finish the game. She's the person who wants the ball in her hands. She got in the free throw line and just knows kind of what play to make to seal that win for us. So, on and off the court, I think, she's transitioned seamlessly, like new coach, new style of play, all of that. But it already feels like I've coached her for more than like 4 games. I think that's the best way to put it. So we're really excited to have her back.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, Coach Clifford, let's take a quick look ahead. After the taping of this episode,
Yep.
You're rushing back to jump on a bus to head out to
Absolutely.
Hopkinton. So
Yep.
talk about your upcoming schedule.
Yeah, so we're at Hopkinton tonight. Again, TVL large opponents, a tough place to play. They're just something in the water out there. They're always like tall, long, and athletic. So we've been working on some stuff in practice, and we have some film on them. So hopefully we'll be ready for that test. Next week we're at home twice. So we host Bellingham on Tuesday and Norton on Friday. So we're excited for a couple home games. And then that's the next couple. We're trying to take things in small chunks.
So how are you doing? I'll ask you on every episode, how are you doing in your goals? Improving every day. It might be difficult over a break, Christmas and then New Year's. So how are you doing in that
Yeah,
front?
the routine's tough. I think the kids found that too, just not being in school and then going to practice, sleeping in, being on vacation. But I think overall the girls did a really good job. I think every week you ask me that, I'll probably talk something about consistency and trying to improve on that. But overall, I think the girls are doing a really good job of just trying to get better, working hard in practice. And, we have different areas of focus depending on maybe an opponent that's coming up or responding to how we played in a game. But overall, I think they're doing really well.
That's great. One comment I'll make on the games that I've observed, you're doing a really nice job of breaking the press. So any teams that try to throw a press at you, whether it's the various guards, senior leadership, some of the underclassmen, doing a really nice job of breaking the press, and then you're causing havoc when you slap on your own press. Any thoughts of how you can improve that even more going forward?
Yeah, I think on the offensive side of it, the press break, I think that's been great. I mean, it was great against Medfield, which was our biggest test defensively so far. Hopefully we can keep that going. I think our team IQ is really high. I think our team vision is really high. So I think that really helps. And we're athletic and talented. All those things obviously help too. But I think those are the X factors, just sort of the IQ. And people just aren't too frantic. We're able to kind of stay calm and just make the smart play. Defensively, that's something that we're definitely turning a focus on, and we'll talk about that again more before the game tonight and all next week. But we want to be able to vary the looks we throw at people, be really aggressive, but also really disciplined is something we've talked a lot about. So we'll continue to try to improve in those areas. But they've been good assets for us so far.
Awesome. Hannah, last question to you. Mm-hmm. So you're one of 2 different brother-sister tandems in the boys and girls program. So do you expect to be back here with your brother Jimmy? Because there's precedent set with the McGowan family. So that'll be a lot of pressure.
I was actually talking to Jimmy about this last night. I'm like, maybe we can come do it together one time. But
should do a full sibling segment. Should
we
get all
could,
4 of them.
absolutely. And then that could be
Family
followed by
affair.
ultimately down the line a twin segment. We just have to start looking early in the younger
Scout the
grades.
twins.
Absolutely. So any fun facts with any fun stories, and you've probably seen other episodes.
Probably too many.
Of any of your teammates. Fun stories, PG rated, that the public at large would like to know.
I haven't thought.
No.
We have what? We can pick on some
There's
sophomores.
definitely-
Caitlin Fleming just falls a lot.
Oh, yes.
There's been a
Caitlin
couple we've had to stop practice.
She trips over the ball, although it shouldn't be on the ground. Sometimes
That's okay. There you
she
go.
trips over the ball, and she has stopped practice a few times, and we've had to restart drills
Just
as
recover,
well.
yeah.
So I mean
It's very
that
funny.
translates to
Good light
drawing charges, right? I mean clearly.
Maybe.
No, a very
Kinda.
perfectionist at flopping.
There you
maybe.
go. So we're gonna turn a fun fact into a stat.
Strength.
Into
Yep.
a strength. Okay,
Got
great.
it.
Well, again, congratulations not only for great play recently since the beginning of season, but also for being back at Westwood. I know the basketball community was very happy to have you back.
Thank you.
And Coach, again, congrats on a couple of wins.
Thank you.
Go get another one tonight in Hopkinton, and next week a couple
Do
at
our
home.
best.
So
Sounds good.
thanks for being here.
Great.
Thank you.
Joining me next in the studio is the boys' player of the week, Favor Wariboko. Welcome, Faber.
Thank you for having me.
So, Faber, first time in the hot seat.
Yeah.
So congratulations, as Coach St. Martin said. You've been producing in many different ways for the team. So talk a little bit about your game coming into this season. What were you looking to establish, and how are you doing in some of those goals?
My main goal was to be more of an offensive threat this year, because last year I was either playing just for defense or rebounds, but this year I wanted to be able to like score more and like give more opportunities to my teammates to score. And I felt I've really been able to do that, whether it's driving and kicking, or just moving the ball up the floor.
Yep, no, that's great. So talk about some of the specific games. The holiday tournament. You had I believe a great tournament. Again, you did the things that you were known for in previous years. The defense was tremendous.
Thank you.
And then you were also able to score on some easy baskets, putbacks, and then some really athletic plays. So talk about those last couple of games.
The Walpole game we had, that one was easier than the Hingham game. It was definitely, I didn't score that much on that one, but I tried to like just push through and like work hard in that game to like play mainly defense and rebounds for my team. And do the Hingham game, it was a tough loss, but just being able to score and provide different opportunities for my teammates, it was really amazing.
What do you feel a team can take from even a tough game like the Hingham game? Playing through it and being down, certain parts of the game, coming back, taking a lead, leading in the second half into the fourth quarter, and then dropping a tough one.
I think what we took away was that there was still stuff we needed to work on, because so far in the other games we've played, we've won all of them, so we never really got the chance to focus on like what we needed to do, or we never thought that it was like really necessary for us to fix it. But now through that loss, we feel like we have to fix our mistakes, and we have to be better than we are and work harder than we have been before.
Yeah. So Faber, this next one's a little bit less about basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody can get to know you a little bit. What do you like doing outside of basketball?
Outside of basketball, I play a lot of video games sometimes, but I like to hang out with my friends and like watch movies, especially like comedy movies. I love those.
There you go. You're a junior,
Yeah.
and again, the second year playing at the varsity level.
Yeah.
You just made a huge fan in my 13-year-old son on the whole video game front. What are your favorite video games?
Right now, I've been playing a lot of NBA 2K, Black Ops 4, and a little bit of Fortnite, but I've died down on it because it's old. It's more for a younger generation now, but it was still a fun game. So
as much as you gained a fan in my 13-year-old son, you've now somewhat lost a little bit of his fandom. He's still very much into the Fortnite front.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So let's look ahead. You've got a home game this evening against Hopkinton.
Yeah.
Next week you're on the road for a couple of games.
Yeah.
What do you do as a player, and kind of an important piece in this Westwood team? What do you do to try to continue the successes you've had and even gain and grow?
I think I just try to like work with my teammates to like make them be better, because sometimes I feel like even if I'm not gonna have a good game, I want to make sure that I'm providing opportunities for my teammates, but I always want to be able to like work hard and be like that spark for my teammates to do better in the game.
Well, Faber, with that attitude, I can see why you're the player of the week. I can see why you've had the successes you've had. Best of luck both tonight against Hopkinton and next week on the road. And I expect to see you back here at least once or twice.
Yes, thank you.
So, congrats.
Thanks.
Joining me next in the studio is Coach Steve St. Martin. Welcome, Coach.
Good to see you, Mike.
So I hope you had a great holiday break.
Fantastic, yeah.
New Year break. Since the last time we spoke, you've had 3 games.
Yep.
Before Christmas, you had Medfield.
Right.
And then after Christmas, you hosted the Holiday Invitational at Westwood High School.
Right.
So talk about how the team's been doing.
Good. I mean, the Medfield game, we started out really fast and were able to create a lot of turnovers, and because of that, we got into a pretty good lead and just kept extending that. We played very, very well in the first half, and that was something that we saw that we needed to start better with a majority of the games, and so it was pleasing to see that, and we finished well as well. The holiday tournament, we didn't start as well with Walpole. Matter of fact, the first half was a struggle, and some of that was what they were doing, but a lot of it was what we were doing. We didn't execute the things that we needed to do, and in the second half came out with a better, more consistent commitment to that execution, and allowed us to extend our lead and do really well. So defensively, we've been doing pretty well. It was the offensive part that we struggled with. And then the championship game against Hingham was a fantastic game. I mean, they're one of the best teams in the state, and why we invited them to be there, as well as the other teams. And we lost at the buzzer, but it was great. It was a great game. It was a good learning experience for us. So.
Yeah. So. We filmed both of those games, and they were, both games were good at certain points, and you struggled at certain points.
Right.
Obviously, it's better to come out of one of those with a win, and you certainly did that against Walpole. I thought you played better, ironically, against Hingham.
Right.
I think the team was up for it. You started pretty well. The early foul trouble for Pat Riley, I think, caused a little bit of a challenge, but the team rallied,
Yep.
played well in the second half, did some really great things to extend a lead, and then Hingham was just relentless.
Right.
They came back, hit some big threes. Talk about what you gain from a tough loss like that.
Well, experiences are experiences is what you do with them. So when we watched the film together, we looked at all the lack of execution that was on our part, not just the missed free throws, but we just went through each play at the start of the fourth quarter and watched both defensively and offensively how the things that we were trying to do, we did not execute well at all. And it wasn't Hingham, it was us, like just missing screens, not running the right play, not everybody being in the same spot defensively, lack of communication. So all those types of things built up. And Hingham is really good, so they take advantage of those things, and we're able to cut into the lead and eventually take the lead. And those are the things that you can learn from. And I say the word can because, again, experiences are what you take from it. For us, it's whether or not now that we see how great we can be if we get better in our execution. And once that happens, we can be very formidable in the future. The other part that was really good is how we did play against them, especially in the third quarter, to force them out of what they like to do. We kind of imposed our will on them to force them to what we wanted to do, especially in the defensive end, and created a abundance of turnovers for ourselves and put us in positions to score easier. But overall, it's a great learning experience when you watch the film together and we dissect it together and people see, because a lot of the times you're playing it in your head. And then when you actually go and look at it, it's a different thing. And my college coach used to always say, film don't lie. He used to always say that. And you would think you'd have this great game, or you would think you'd play really bad. And then you watch the film and it's not as great as you thought it was, or it's not as bad as you thought it was. So that's the things we're hoping to take from it.
Are you channeling your inner Belichick there?
Yeah, well, I didn't have him as a coach, but my college coach at Assumption was one of the best around, so
yeah.
pretty fortunate.
No, that's a very Belichickian answer.
Yes.
Let's go to the tape. Interestingly enough, about the tape, that Hingham game ended in somewhat with a controversial call.
Right.
Big three-pointer made by McGowan.
Yep.
To tie the game up.
Right.
Quick outlet. They come down. Less than 5 seconds to play. Bang play could have gone either way.
Right.
So whether you agree with the call or disagree with the call, they call a blocking foul on James McGowan. So Jack Johnson for Hingham goes to the line.
Right.
He gets 2 shots at that point. You're in the double bonus.
Right.
Misses the first. Second one, around the rim goes in.
Yeah.
And they end up winning by 1 point. You said something to me after that game, which again, stays with me. So, and I asked you, what do you think about the call?
Right, and it's funny. That's the first thing that people will say, and I always say it's not the call that lost the game. We look at it that way because it's the very last play, But we had an 8-point lead with 4:54 left. The rest didn't miss free throws. The rest did not execute offensively. The rest didn't, not execute defensively. It was us that did those things that put us in that position. So in life, you never want to leave it in the hands of other people. If you take care of the things that you need to do, 99% of the time it works out in your favor. This one didn't because we didn't take care of what we needed to do. So it's very easy to point the finger at the call. And we've been in situations like this many times in the past, and my answer is always the same. It's the things that you do, there's hundreds of plays before that one, that you have a chance to execute and come out on top. And when you don't do those things, that's a problem that you have to live with. And for us, we were 1 for 10 from the free throw line. 1 for 10. And then on top of that, we forced 36 turnovers, but we only scored 14 points off of that. So those are the things that you look at when you dissect it all. Could the call have been better? Absolutely, but we could have been better.
Yep.
So, and that's what I want us to focus on is what are the things that we can control? Because if you start worrying about this thing or that thing, then there's always going to be something in your way. And it's in the minute that you take responsibility for it and say, hey, here are all the things that we can do better. And this is how we adjusted things in practice for us to do better. Like we went back and it wasn't just the players, it was us as coaches looking at different things and saying, okay, how are we going to fix this problem? How are we going to fix that? And we redid a bunch of stuff and that we do this constantly. So our practices thematically stay the same, but there are always little nuances that we interject in there as the season goes on, because that's how you get better, and that's the goal.
So that's obviously a phenomenal way to look at a tough loss like that. Do you think you've grown as a coach over the last 8 years?
Oh, absolutely.
And do you think you would have had that same kind of thought coming out of a game 8 years ago, early on here at Westwood?
Yes, I would have. But I think the part that I've really grown is I've always wanted to get better at whatever I do. Even as a teacher, like the kids in my classroom fill in notebooks we keep in the class, and every summer I go through everything and figure out, like, okay, how do I make this better? What did not work? What worked? So we've made adjustments in the classroom. The court is the exact same thing. We have a couple of things offensively that have stayed with us, but a majority of it changes year to year based upon your personnel, who makes your team, based upon different things that you thought could have been better. And the same thing defensively. Like we love to press, but we've added little nuances in how we trap differently, where we trap, and then we brought in different types of traps. So we're always changing it. And that's a testament to the players as well, because when you have players that are committed to being really great players, all right, you don't have to worry about the motivational part of it. You still do things, but they're so motivated, we can now focus in on the execution and how do we enhance the basketball part of it. So those things make it a lot easier to do. But I've definitely grown. I can't imagine not doing that. And a lot of that's the staff as well. We have guys that are always thinking about new ideas. How do we change this? And I welcome all that. Like we always discuss stuff every week.
But when do you discuss that? So when do you get together as a core coaching staff?
So we usually do it, everybody together, we usually do that once a week, usually on a Friday. We'll meet up and talk about stuff. And then there's always stuff with myself, Coach Leibrock, and Coach Douglas, and Coach Kiley, who are usually at the varsity practices. Mm-hmm. And then there are things with Coach Lee, who's the JV coach, or Coach Scully, and sometimes the three of us, but usually it could be an individual thing on things we're looking at trying to do, things we're looking at trying to change. And you have to keep doing that. And I tell this story all the time, Mike. When we first hired Coach Douglas as the JV coach and Coach Lee as the freshman coach, I noticed all of a sudden the following year, I noticed defensively that we weren't as sharp as we have been. And I'm trying to figure out why. And what I realized was when I first took over Westwood, we had Coach Leibrock and Coach Norman was the freshman JV coaches. We all did the exact same things. So after 2 years, I could change at the varsity and do more advanced things because they were continuing that process. When I hired the new coaches, I forgot that they didn't know the stuff that we did. And just, just my thought process was like, they're going to keep doing the same stuff, but they don't know what the same stuff was. So what we did is we went back and revamped the practices and changed it mid-season and said, okay, now you guys got to do these things, and here's why.
Yep.
And so then we're right back where we need to be, from that standpoint. And that's just constant looking at yourself as how do I get better with these things? We've added a lot of different things with these guys as well this year, looking at not just from the strength and conditioning components that we do, but we've also added in a lot of work with the mental toughness and the emotional maturity pieces, working with mindfulness and visualization techniques that Larry Bird and Tiger Woods and folks have used. And then we also embraced a lot of the meditational pieces to try to look at each experience as it is, but treat it the same. So the free throw you're shooting in your backyard is the same as the one in practice, which is the same as the one in the fourth quarter versus Medfield on the road. You know what I mean? So we're trying to get to that step where we look at those things, and that's what great players do. Yep. Steph Curry treats every shot the same way, no matter if it's the fourth quarter, first quarter, preseason, off-season, and that type of commitment to excellence is how you get better.
There was one of my favorite articles was by Jay Billis around mental toughness.
Right, the mental toughness
and,
one,
and
right.
I shared that with a lot of the WBA coaches
Yep.
back in the day, and it's a lot of the same things that you're drawing
That
from.
was a fantastic article.
Yeah.
He writes really well. He does
Yeah.
a lot of good stuff.
So talk to me, getting back to kind of the current team and the run you've had. Let me tee up the player of the week, and it's actually the player of the last week and a half.
Right.
So who's winning this
Favor
year?
Waraboku is he's been tremendous on all aspects of playing. He is so in tuned in our press and such a key component in it because of his athleticism, his speed, and his ability to anticipate. And he can make plays that a lot of players can't make because of those skill sets that he has. And he's committed to it. We play him a ton. And, I'm always checking in with him. You all right? You need a break? He's like, no, I'm fine, coach. And he gets after it. He's a tremendous person and has added so much to what we do this year that allows us to be more creative.
That's great. We'll meet Favor a little bit later. Let's talk a little bit about the road ahead.
Sure.
You actually host Hopkinton tonight.
Correct.
After this, people will be looking at the score after this airs. Talk a little bit about that game and then on the road next week.
Well, Hopkinton's always tough. They're very athletic. They've always been big and athletic. They're not as big as they have been in the past, but they play very, very intense defense, and they try to create a lot of turnovers in their favor, similar to the way we play. They have some really good shooters. They have good playmakers. They have guys that can finish inside. They're very aggressive on the offensive rebounds. They play very, very hard. So it's going to be a really strong task for us to be able to consistently play the way we want tonight.
That's great. Next week, you're on the road.
We're on the road next 4 games, so it'll be
well,
interesting.
you've had the luxury of being at home quite a bit early in the season. So next week, though, let's talk about those 2 games at Bellingham and then at Norton.
So Bellingham is right now undefeated in the league in the small side. Been playing very well. They have more size this year than they've had in the past. He does a great job with them being very competitive. They were very competitive last year. Norton, then we go to Norton. That's always a great game. They won the league last year in the large side, and then they moved to the small side. They have the MVP of the league back. It's going to be a very tough challenge ahead for us to continue to do the things we need to do. We got to be really disciplined.
Let's talk about the goals that you set at the beginning of the season. How are you
Sure.
doing on some of those goals?
Right. The big thing, Mike, we always talk about is, the number one thing is we need to be the best we can be every day. That's number one. So if that's not happening, then the other stuff you're setting for yourself, you're lessening your chances of getting there. So number one is making sure that we are the best we can be every day. And then after that, you have the goals that the players select as far as, winning the TVL and hosting a playoff game and make it to the Garden, et cetera, et cetera. So, we are on target for a lot of those things. And that's primarily because we're going to look at number one first, and that's being the best we can be today. And then from there, everything else will grow.
Right back to mental toughness.
Yeah, that's true.
That's great. So again, Coach, best of luck tonight,
you.
and then next week on the road for the next 4. I believe we'll be back in studio next Friday, right before you jump on a bus to head to Norton. And again, congrats to Favor, who we're going to meet in a second,
Right.
and all of the Player of the Weeks. But Favor, he's the only one in 2019.
It's right. It's true.
He owns 2019
It's
so
true.
far. So again, congrats on
Thank you.
the great run.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you all for joining us on Around the Hoop, the Westwood Basketball Show. Special thanks again to Coach Clifford, as well as Coach St. Martin, and the 2 Players of the Week, Hannah Bean and Favor Wariboko. Don't forget to come out and support the boys and basketball teams tonight against Hopkinton. The boys will be home, the girls will be traveling out Route 90. And then next week, they have Bellingham and Norton. The boys will be on the road, both games, on the 8th and the 11th, and the girls will be at Westwood High School. Support all Westwood sports programs. Lots of great action in the winter season. So again, I want to thank the Westwood Media Center staff, to Connor Lynch, who's in the booth today, to Maggie McGinnis, who's wasn't able to join us today because she's at the Spelling Bee. Very exciting stuff. And then also to Melinda Garfield, the Executive Director. If you haven't been down to 15 Purwall Street to check out the Westwood Media Center, you're missing out. Please come during business hours. Until next time, from Around the Hoop, I'm Mike Gay. We'll see you then.